Dave, it was after the...
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it was after the...
Right, pretty close in point in time?
Yeah.
All right, so they meet with you at the Colchester Police Department, not True K, where they're...
Colchester Police
Department. All right, I went out.
Across from the post office.
Right.
We were having small talk. I was telling them about all the crimes that I've done. I haven't been caught for different, just, I was telling them how I used to do crazy stuff in my car, blowing donuts at places. And,
not really a serious crime.
Yeah, not really. Yeah. And it's, I said, I've done this, I've done that. And I told them when I was younger I stole cars, and, and they said, Officer Thomas said, you ever kill anybody? I said, no. He says, could you ever kill anybody? I said, nah.
Was he serious?
Yeah. He was, at this point, I didn't think anything of it. Right. I just thought it was one of our normal conversations. And we kept talking, and we started talking about Phillip. And while we were talking about Phillip, Officer Thomas was saying, he's a loose cannon. So, he's going to hurt somebody, he's going to kill somebody. And, I was just like, whatever.
You didn't really believe that?
No, but
you went along.
I went along with them. The cops, they helped me out. And, whatever I had to do to protect myself, get advantage for myself.
Right.
And then when they saw I was agreeing, Officer Thomas said, well, if he was to disappear, he said, you would get 10 grand.
And at that point, did you think he was serious?
I knew he was serious, and I knew he was, and I was serious. I knew he was so serious that I thought to myself, I could use 10 grand. And
was there any further conversation by him and Nardella then?
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
I said, he's the easiest man in the world to kill. I said, no one knows him. I said,
the first thing he said was 10 grand.
Yeah.
Was there anything else before you talked about killing him?
Well, he said, he said to Officer Nardella, he said, well, he looked at Officer Nardella, he said, you got 5 grand, I got 5 grand, that's 10 grand. And Officer Nardella added, I got 5 grand right in the bank right now. And I said, hey, 10 grand. I said, all I got to do is go down to Louisiana, get myself a nice pickup truck, come and find him. So he used to ride his bike all over town. Right. I said, all I got to do is find him riding down the road in the middle of the night sometime, hit him at about 80, and he'd be dead. And
that is something you knew with everyone knows Phil Inkel rides around with a bike in Colchester.
Yeah, that's all he does. He's got a car, but he rides a bike on him.
Right. What did they say when you told them that idea you had?
I told him it looked like a drunk driving accident. They agreed. No one's gonna miss him. I agree too. Who's gonna miss him? He's got a wife and kids, but other than that, everybody in town knows who he is. But he said he keeps this up.
So it would look like a hit and run. Is that the idea?
I told him, I said, I have a place to get rid of the truck.
Right. What did they say about the plan?
They said, if you don't feel like stealing a truck, we can always get you.
They get one for it.
Yeah.
Okay. So they thought it was a good idea.
Oh yeah. It was,
All right. And how was it left?
It was left. I said, now's not the time to do it.
Right. Thinking too hot?
Yeah. And they agreed, and they said, well, we'll wait a little while so this blows over.
Who said that?
Officer Thomas.
Okay. He did most of the talking.
He did most of the talking. Okay. But Nardella agreed with everything he said.
Well, he was ready to chip in half the money.
Right.
Okay. Now, as you know, I told you before, somehow a story got around town in probably the last week in June, the last 7 or 8 days in June, that you had told people they offered you money to kill the Murzin. All right. Now that's what I'm coming to.
Tried to kill the Murzin.
I think something got lost here in translation.
Well, the thing was, I said, that guy who had charges against the police officers.
Right. You meant Inkel.
Right, I meant Inkel, and maybe they didn't know about Inkel because he didn't do anything with the media.
Right, the Murzins did, and everybody knew about it right around that point in time. Okay, now, why did you tell people about it?
I told people about it because I knew sooner or later it was going to come down to, me against Nardella and Thomas, and I didn't want if anything happened to me between, that time, between me facing them, I wanted to make sure that everybody knew.
Remember you told me you met with Briger at Food Factory?
Yeah.
When you told Briger what they asked you about at I-8 did, and that would apparently be after they talked to you about harming Inkel, because that's what they asked you.
Yeah.
you detected that Briger at that point was kind of telling you what to do when you realized he wasn't a good guy.
Yeah. Well,
did you tell your friends after that because you realized you're out there on a limb and now you don't have Briger or Nardella or Thomas?
I told, at first, when Officer Nardella and Officer Thomas first offered me the money, I went and told a few people.
Who?
I told my mother.
Okay.
I told my girlfriend. My girlfriend was the same night.
Right.
I told my girlfriend and my mother. I told my best friend a couple of days later, Seth Korn.
Okay.
I told Michael Tancredi. I told a lot of my good friends about it.
Did you tell more of them after you talked to Briger?
Yeah, after I talked to Briger and I realized, I thought I could put some trust in Briger. I trusted him. I thought that he would take care of me.
Right.
And once I realized he didn't, as soon as he dropped me off the food bag, Stephen McGowan was there, John LeCasky.
John LeCasky, the other fellow that was wounded in the shooting where your friend was killed. Dan
O'Connor was there. Susie Legier was there. I told all those guys, right, they witnessed Trooper Briger dropped me off. And I told them the reason this guy just dropped me off is because I was going to try to tell him that I was, offered money to kill Phillip Inkel by Officer Nardella and Officer Tom.
He didn't want to hear it?
He didn't want to hear it. Okay. I said, something's going to happen, and I need people to know about it.
Right. So you were trying to cover yourself.
Right.
And is at that point you realized maybe you ought to move or get out of town?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, and you said you did lie to IAD when they first asked you about it because, one, you were scared.
Because I thought they were siding with me.
Right. And you got a slant on where they looked like they were going. And it wasn't to really objectively investigate. It was to kind of smear the complainants and uphold the two constables. Is that a fair statement? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No.
Okay. All right. Now, when you met that time with Nardella and Thomas, and you talked about this idea of to harm Inkel and the idea of hitting him with a truck, did they talk at all about the Murzin brothers or any of the other people who were coming forward?
They told me they had a whole list of names of people that had given statements to Phillip Inkel.
Okay.
And they said they wanted everybody on that list to be taken care of, especially Stephen and Ian.
Did they say how they wanted to do that?
They didn't want them killed. They wanted them run out of town. They wanted to make their lives living hell.
Did they have a time frame for doing that?
They said after it blows over, whenever.
They want to make their life a living hell?
Right.
Like what? Give me an example. Like start fights with them, get them arrested.
Yeah. But they said it was okay if I beat them up.
Now you had that happen before, where they kind of sanctioned you to beat people up.
They never asked me. They just told me it was okay if I did it.
And you wouldn't get arrested if you did beat up Mr. X or Mr. Y?
Right.
Could you give me some examples of who you did that to?
I beat up Jeff Wilson once at McDonald's.
Okay.
And I beat up Jeff Wilson and Robert Rutchuck at the same time at McDonald's. Not at a different period, but they were both there.
Okay. And you didn't get arrested?
Didn't get arrested. The police were called both incidents, but I didn't get arrested for one.
And you could handle yourself.
Yeah.
In fact,
they know about my training.
Yeah, right. Well, you had some trained boxing, martial arts,
wrestling.
All right. One time you beat up the Constable Gendron, and they didn't even arrest you for that. Was that right? Okay. And that was in front of people, and he was pretty, he showed on his face that he you got. You never got picked up for assault on a police officer
or anything, but I just rolled and did some wrestling and stuff.
But you beat him, and people know you did, and you never were arrested.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and that was Gendron on duty when that happened?
Yeah. Okay. Officer Thomas was there, and Officer Thomas told me later on, because they don't really care for Gendron a whole lot, but Officer Thomas told me later on that he had counted to 50 before he got on top of me while I was beating him up.
So you could do a job on his part, or his fellow officer.
Okay. And when Officer Thomas tried to stop me, I was on top of Gendron with my legs over him with my legs and my arms, and Officer Thomas straddled me, and he was like, all right, Todd, that's enough. And I grabbed Officer Thomas's leg and turned him over too, but then he got a little rough over and stopped.
When Nardella and Thomas talked to you about harming Inkel, they were on duty then, weren't they?
Yeah.
Okay, so he was actually in uniform in the police station. Okay. Now, did there come a time when you saw Phil Inkel and talked to him about this idea that they had?
Since the day that, see, I didn't believe the loose cannon stuff about Phil Inkel. I always thought he was a good guy, and he was smart. And I've always wanted to approach him and tell him about Austin Thomas and Officer Nardella's offer to me. But I didn't know what would happen. I didn't know he had backup. I didn't know he had help, and I didn't think there was anything he could do for me. So I never told him. But after a while thinking about it and it was getting on my conscience, it was eating away at me. I finally approached him, and Wednesday.
That's Wednesday, the 27th of July.
Yeah, last
past week.
Yep.
Okay.
And I told him I said to have attorney contact.
Okay. At that point, you didn't know whether you had an attorney or not.
Right. But I thought I could have seen that he had an attorney.
Yeah. Okay. And basically, did he want to know what you wanted to talk to the attorney about?
He knew.
Did you tell him what you wanted to talk to him about? Did he ask you?
I didn't tell him it, but he asked me what, and I didn't tell him at first.
This is Wednesday.
Yeah.
Okay. Where'd this happen?
At John Deere, D&H
on Main Street.
Right.
What did you end up telling him?
I told him that I was talking to him.
Okay.
Everybody else and everyone else.
All right. Now I'm going to just jump back again at the point in time for something I let go, and then I'll come back to tell him to go Wednesday night about the plan. You said that the night they talked to you about the plan, at the time, what time of the day was it? The night when they first talked to you up in the police station about this plan? Remember?
About 10:30,
Daytime?
No,
nighttime. Okay, all right. You said they also said they knew, or they had a list of other people that they wanted to get, or they were
Yeah, there are people that Phil Inkel had taken statements from.
Oh, okay.
And they somehow got a hold of their statements.
Did they make statements to the effect of, we're going to get everybody on the list?
Yeah.
Okay. And you have learned either through hearsay or other people that Phil Inkel claims they took legal papers that he had written up on people that were involved, knew he'd beaten or knew they were doing things wrong, and he was trying to make an investigation, and they took that stuff from him when they beat him up.
Yeah.
You don't know that firsthand, but you know that he claimed.
There was even a statement from me in there, which I didn't sign because of...
They asked you about that.
Yeah.
So they knew that you had an unsigned statement.
Right.
Which would make you think they had the statement.
Right.
How else would they know? All right. Do you know anyone else they mentioned that they told you had given statements?
They told me about Charity Timeransky, Jamie Martin, there was a few people.
Christy Peters.
Well,
those three people you named all girls.
Robert Rutchuk.
Okay. Rutchuk gave a statement. Anybody else?
Anthony Gardner.
Okay. How about Ian Murzin?
Ian. They told me about Ian. And there was lots of others on there.
How about Mike Sinklewitz, also known as Stinky, as they call him?
Yeah, Stinky.
Okay. So it was clear that they had information from some source that people were giving statements to Phil Inkel, and they wanted them to get in trouble too.
They had the statements.
Did they tell you that?
Yeah, they actually had
They shown to you?
They didn't show them to me. They told me they had the statement.
All right. And you've learned since then that the claim is they actually took Inkel's legal papers, and that included these statements.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, we're back to Phil Inkel seeing you Wednesday night up at John Deere on Main Street in Colchester. You do tell him, after he presses you a few times, that what you're going to tell him is that these guys got a plan to get you to kill him.
Right.
Okay. Now, let me tell you just a little background so you understand what we then learned. On Thursday morning, the morning after this happened, I had to be in court with Mr. Murzin, his two sons, and two other youngsters that are charged in the breach of the peace that allegedly occurred at Chucky's Easy Mart the same night that Murzin's boys were arrested, the night before the morning when the Murzin boys were arrested and beaten at Troop K. We went to court. Also that day, Phil Inkel had a court trial scheduled on the case at McDonald's where he was allegedly beaten by Nardella and Thomas. So all this activity is going on in GA 21 in Norwich, and in comes Ed O'Regan, who called, while I was in the state's attorney's office, he called and sent his secretary across the foyer to get me, saying it was urgent. And it turns out the urgency that he wanted to impart to me was that Inkel had told him that they had a plan to kill him. Ed O'Regan, as I understand it, and this is what he told me, I'm paraphrasing, it may be somewhat incorrect in terms of memory or a lot of other things were going on that morning, but he had somehow contacted Chris Cerrone, the United States Attorney for the Federal District of Connecticut, and that Mr. Droney was going to respond to this possible contract of death threat on Inkel's life, or Reagan's client. In the same time frame that I'm being told that, I also had a phone conversation with Kevin Kane, the number 2 Part A state's attorney from the London Judicial District in Bob Sadie's office in London, that he was going to come up and try to continue the Inkel trial because of the pending investigation of the whole Colchester mess, particularly Nardella and Thomas. And he wanted to meet with me and talk with me about the investigation and how serious I thought it might be. And I was, of course, there to get my breach of peace cases continued because I didn't feel they should go forward, one, now until the investigation, so-called investigation of the state police is completed, and more important, that I did have no intention of them ever going forward in GA 21 in Norwich. They were going to be moved either on a motion at my request to another court, or I would go into federal court and ask for a restraining order to take those cases out of that state court system, because that's where Nardella and Thomas have brought many cases, and cases which are now being investigated, some of which are found to be troublesome, I suppose is a nice word. Yeah. But anyway, a lot was happening there that morning. While all this is going on, in come 2 FBI agents, Jim Herbert and his partner, a short guy with black hair, I forget his name. And they got me alone and essentially wanted to know, is this a serious thing or what's going on here, before they even talked to Inkel or his lawyer. And I told them, yeah, it's very serious. And there's no joke, and this isn't some people going off the deep end, that we got to spend some time and talk about it. That happened in the public defender's office, in Reagan's office. Across the hall, Kevin Kane, in essence, is asking me the same kind of thing. Is this serious, Mack? What do you think? And, you know, my background is as a federal prosecutor. I've been appointed twice as an independent state and/or federal prosecutor. You know, I have somebody. I've been around the track, and I have some credibility in the business. And if I say it's serious, they listen. Or at least I hope they do. So I'm telling Kevin the same thing. What I also told both groups separately, the FBI agents and Kevin Kane in separate offices, and I believe I told the agents both alone and when O'Regan came back into the office, that I had understood that you would talk to Phil Inkel, that you wanted to cooperate, that you were worried, you were scared, and you wanted to come in and talk. And I told both Kevin Kane and the agents, probably with O'Regan there when I told the agents, that they should spend their time fruitfully, go out and find Todd Vashon and get him to cooperate, and they would be able to unravel, as it were, this whole ball of yarn, and probably short circuit what would be an awful lot of work, you know, work that the state police had already attempted to get going on, although I'm not sure what their real direction was, because I heard the same kinds of things you did about questions they were asking me. Now, I didn't know when I left there around 1 o'clock that day what was going to happen. Thursday night, we had the meeting in Colchester, the police commission, where they had this so-called executive session. We did not participate except at the beginning of it. We walked out of it. They did put these 2 guys on administrative duty that I had asked them back in mid or third week in June to suspend with pay if they wanted, because the sense I had was that they were tampering with witnesses, influencing witnesses, having kids give false statements about what happened at Chucky's. But the longer they were on duty, they harassed and Murzin on one occasion after the beatings. So while left on duty, they were still out, you know, doing things wrong and causing trouble and solidifying the cover-up, as it were. That was not, of course, acted on, and they finally put them on administrative duty Thursday the 28th. But they still are in the office. They still can use the phones. We won't get into that to show that they are using their position. But the point I'm making is we went to this meeting. I talked to a lot more people outside that either wanted help, they wanted someone to speak for them, including Phil Inkel. New incidents came up, and there was some action by the police commissioners, as we characterize it, too little, too late. I went home. I'm exhausted. I've been on this case all day. I go home, I go to bed. Friday, some different things happened. We learned some more information. But the bottom line was, I said to Rich Murzin on Friday afternoon, he's sitting right here to my left, you know, it really would be good if we could get a hold of Todd Vashon and to reach out and try and get a hold of you through the other kids who know you. At about 12:30, after midnight, Saturday morning, the 30th, my wife wakes me up in my farmhouse, tells me Rich Murzin's on the phone. I get on the phone, he explains to me that he got a hold of you, you met with him, and you have some very serious information you want to talk to us about. He gave me some idea what it was. And then I and Rich set a time to meet with you Saturday, yesterday, at about 12:15. We met at another location, drove here to the Murzin's house, and talked for a couple hours. The most, I think, was 2 hours. Basically, that's the background how we hooked up with you. Now, as you said earlier, nobody's offered you anything, nobody's paying you anything. As I understand it, you're here voluntarily, you belong free will, and you want to tell the story about what happened. What I learned from Mr. Murzin, and what I learned kind of going over it with you yesterday, is essentially that, well, let me just back up. When I talked on Thursday at the Norwich court to both Kevin Kane of the state's attorney's office and to the 2 agents from the FBI, it was evident to be that they were just learning about the background of this case and were not aware of who the players were other than Nardella and Thomas. And I didn't tell them, watch out for constable this or that, or that, you know, the resident trooper Briger is the guy that probably is responsible for, is responsible for supervising these 2 guys. That I think his involvement in the hiring of Thomas as I have information now, is just outrageous, and that'll come out. We don't need to do that here on camera. But that he's intimately involved with them, knows what they're doing, knows that you were a cooperating individual.
It's obvious that he knows what he's doing because of the fact that the day I was pulled over in my pickup truck, and he made the officer who wanted to arrest me let me go.
Right. But right, that's right. But I did not tell the FBI or Kevin Kane, oh, by the way, if you reach out and can find Todd Vashon, don't tell Briger you're talking to him. That's a mistake I made, but in fairness, I think with all the information I know, and they didn't know, it's understandable why I didn't tell them. Now, with that in mind, did someone reach out to you after I told you about what happened down in court in Norwich? Were you approached by anybody on Thursday the 28th of July to discuss this matter?
Trooper Briger called me in the morning.
And that's at the place you were living outside of Colchester?
Yes.
And he had that number and you knew it?
Right.
Okay.
I gave it.
All right. And let me just back up so I don't leave this out again. I don't mean to jump around. But when you talked to IAD at your house, when Briger told you to set that up, this was earlier, and you lied to them about not being offered any money to harm anybody. Around that time, did Briger tell Nardella and Thomas in your presence that they were not to talk to you anymore, not to approach you?
Yeah, he told me.
Okay, was it after the IAD discussion?
Yes.
Okay, a couple days later?
Yes.
All right, and they were there, you were there, and he was there. And what did he say?
He told me, he didn't tell them, but he told me in front of them that they are not to talk to me, they are not to, ask me any questions about the investigation, and if they do, don't answer. Okay. Now, just let me follow up on that. I mean, did they abide by that starting back, in June? They told you that? No.
Have they quoted you on almost a daily basis?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so they did not obey what Briger told them?
Right.
Did you think Briger was serious, or do you think maybe he was just saying that?
I think he was just saying that to cover his ass.
Okay. Yeah, he had to say it, but he knew that. All right, now, here we are. Briger comes out, picks you up in the area you now live in, right?
Right.
And he's going to bring, what did he tell you? He's going to bring you to the FBI?
He told me he was bringing Todd. He told me that he was going to have me talk to FBI. And immediately, I was in my apartment, immediately I thought, why didn't the FBI contact me?
You weren't sure he was telling you the truth.
Yeah, I was rather scared, but I wanted to talk to the FBI, so instead of having Trooper Briger pick me up at my apartment, I asked him to meet me at the Dunkin' Donuts. And,
did you take any precautions, like briefing your roommates as to what was going on?
I actually had my roommates come to Dunkin' Donuts with me and watch me get in the car with Trooper Briger. And I told them if I don't contact them within the next 2 hours to contact someone.
Okay. All right. So Briger gets you in the car. Where do you go?
He brought me to Colchester Troop K.
All right. What did you talk about on the way to Troop K?
We talked about me and Trooper Briger's past, small talk.
Nothing about what they wanted to talk to you.
No.
Okay. And you get to Troop K. Tell me what happened.
When I got to Troop K, Trooper Briger just dropped me off there, and I met the 2 FBI agents, and I went in with Sergeant Stephen Fields into his office.
He's from Troop K?
He's from Troop K.
Okay. And when you got in the office with the agents and Sergeant Fields, what was discussed? You know, how did it proceed? No, I know you're tired. I am too. We're doing all right. We're doing the best we can.
When I first went in there, they said, "So what do you got for us?" And I told them, I said, "I'm not telling you the damn thing until you promise me protection." They explained that they can't promise.
When you say that, you mean the 2 federal agents?
Yes, and just Sergeant Fields.
Right.
They said they could not promise me protection until they knew what I had.
Yeah, they needed a proc or an offer from you or what you're going to say before they know who was valuable.
And I explained to them how serious it was before I told them. And I said, "You don't know a damn thing." I said, "You don't know what the hell's going on." I said, "You have no clue what's happening in this little town." And
You're absolutely right.
Well, let me tell you. Sergeant Fields says, "Well, don't belittle us." You know, he said, "We know exactly what's going on. We know exactly what's going on." And then I said, "Do you know that I was offered money to kill Phillip Inkel by Officer Thomas and Officer Nardella?" And he said, "Oh, you know." It was a shock to him. I knew he already had the information, but it was a shock to him to hear it from my mouth.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't think they did. I don't think they did have any understanding of it. I think that's why they haven't acted. Yeah, they didn't act before that because they had no clue.
And there probably was some direction from people doing the internal investigation. You know, that it's a bunch of crazy kids, as I believe you know. You've read the paper.
Yeah.
It's all bad kids. All right. So in any event, you tell them that. You kind of drop that bomb on them, and they start to pay attention. Would that be a fair statement?
Oh, yeah.
I now got their attention.
It was a very... Sergeant Stephen Fields left the office, and I was discussing my relationship with Officer Thomas and Officer Nardella, with the 2 federal agents, when Sergeant Fields came back and said, "Todd, are you going to take a polygraph test?" He says, "I think it's real important that we take it right now."
Now, how early was that? I mean, you were there all afternoon.
I was there all afternoon.
So you didn't tell that right? You didn't say that to you right away?
No, we did a lot of talking about
Briger, Nardella, Thomas,
right.
Your relationship to them.
Right.
Did they get into a lot of background about the other kids, Inkel, Murzin, or was it mostly just your... They weren't slanting it towards, let's dirty up the kids.
That was the reason that I told them, and not the... excuse me. And not the IAD, because...
I mean, you told these guys the truth when you hadn't told IAD.
Because it was very obvious to me that IAD wasn't looking for that information. Right. And it was very obvious to me that the feds wanted to know.
Okay.
And they were on my side.
All right. So you had a different feeling about the slant or a possible bias, or that they were at least objective and thought maybe something bad was going on.
They were very objective, yeah.
Okay. Good. Go ahead.
It was very obvious to me that Sergeant Fields was the cop to talk to, because one of the things that impressed me the most is Sergeant Fields explained to me that he went after one of his guys once for just hitting a man in handcuffs. A police officer hit a man in handcuffs, and Sergeant Fields took immediate action, and that impressed me the most.
Okay, so you had some confidence they were really paying attention on the whitewashing.
Right.
All right. Now, at some point, Fields comes back in and discusses a polygraph with you and the agents.
Right.
And you agreed to take it.
Of course. I mentioned that to him before I said anything.
When
I told him how serious it was, I said, they said, you know, if you're just in here to bullshit, I said, I'm not here to bullshit you. I said, as soon as I'm done telling you this, I'll take the polygraph test. I really don't do this shit.
Okay. So he comes in and talks about, let's go get it done. Do you go to Meriden and take a polygraph?
I went.
Okay, now let's talk about that. Who took you over to Meriden?
The 2 federal agents and
Fields.
Sergeant Fields.
Okay, now it's dark when you get there?
Yeah, it was dark. It's about 9 o'clock. 9:30.
And you are tested by a fellow, you recall his name is Joe?
His name is Joe.
Tall.
Yeah, there was another man there also, another polygraph.
Joe had black hair?
Yeah.
All right. And looked like he was Italian?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And he does what's called a pre-test interview. You remember that part, where he discusses the background with you?
Yeah.
All right. And then he structures a bunch of questions that are going to test you on a number of times.
Right.
All right. And did they put you through the test 3 times?
They put me through the test 3 times.
Approximately 10 questions?
Yeah. They gave me 1 test. It was actually 4. One of them was just a control test.
Okay.
They gave me the regular test once with the questions that I agreed to answer. We made up the questions together. And they gave me that test once. Then they gave me a control test, and then I took the test.
Now, in the pre-test interview, before you were actually tested, while you were discussing it with him, was there an interruption or anything that happened in that?
Yeah, it was a startling interruption. Joe came in with a photograph, a mugshot of a woman named Barbara Pierce.
Brenda?
Brenda, right, Brenda Pierce.
You told me this yesterday.
Yeah. And he came in. He said, "Do you know this woman?" I said, "No." He goes, "You sure?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "Well, the FBI just handed me this photograph." He said this woman had been offering money to people to incriminate us, Thomas and Officer Nardella. And I said, "Not me." He asked me directly. That was one of my questions on the test. Did Brenda Pierce?
So they worked that into the test.
Right.
All right. Now you told that to Richard Murzin and I yesterday afternoon for the first time.
Right.
Did it appear to both you and we didn't even know who they were talking about either?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Murzin later recollected he thinks there's a woman by that name whose family's involved in some kind of drug activity.
Correct. Okay. She's been recently arrested.
Right. But you didn't know who she was.
No,
And that was a question they put into the test, whether you knew her or knew anything about this running around offering money to hurt Nardella all the time, and develop that information. All right. And what were the other operative questions that you remember they asked?
Did Officer Thomas ever offer me money to make Phillip Inkel disappear? I answered yes. Did Officer Nardella have $5,000 to add to Officer Thomas's $5,000 to make the $10,000 for me to have Phillip Inkel disappear? The answer was yes. Have I ever tried to give them false information to hurt someone else?